a lot of work to do.
Once a rebel, always a rebel.
They kind of have like an audience avatar character with this. I forget what his name is. Carson. I think that X-wing pilot who's showed up like in Mandalorian. He showed up in Book of Boba Fett. He's shown up, here in Ahsoka. And he's like us. He's like, wait, what the hell just happened? And Hu Yang comes in. He's like, oh, listen, yeah, Hera stooped this Jedi named Kanan Jarrus, and they had a kid, and he has the Force. And Carson just goes, okay. He just shrugs his shoulder and says, sure. And he just goes back to his ship and starts his patrols. And so I like that. He's just like, all right, whatever. Sure. Just tell me on a need-to-know basis. That's fine. That's fine. Hello, and thank you for checking out the video. I just want to let you know that I not only create content on my YouTube channel, Class in the Glass, but I'm also on Twitch, where I review movies, cartoons, and TV shows live, while also playing single-player games and multiplayer games. I also have a Patreon, where subscribers have access to hundreds of video and audio commentaries for films and cartoons, as well as podcasts and videocasts. In the meantime, thank you again for watching. Enjoy the video. We're going to go ahead, and we're going to move on to the next part of my show. And that is my review for Ahsoka Episode 5. I've been reviewing this series on a weekly basis, chat, all the way back for Episode 1 and 2. And, like I've been saying, like I've enjoyed the show. It's been fine. It certainly has not reached the same heights of quality. It has not reached the same level of quality when it came to its the characters in Andor and the storytelling in Andor, but certainly not nearly as bad as something like Obi-Wan Kenobi or the Book of Boba Fett, chat. Certainly not that. But it's been shows like, guys, this is enjoyable enough. It's I kind of look at it as almost like cotton candy, to a degree. It has its ups, it has its downs, it has its good moments, has its kind of it's more mixed bad moments, chat. But overall, I think it's been fine. It's been an okay show. And for those that don't know the general plot of this particular episode, chat, while Hera and the surviving New Republic pilots search for Ahsoka and Sabine, Ahsoka is confronted with her past to learn a valuable lesson from a seemingly dead mentor. Before jumping into the meat of this particular episode, I want to get into the B-plot. Kind of want to get the B plot over with, honestly. Obviously, Hera was not able to get to Ahsoka and Sabine in time before Elsbeth activated her, ship's hyperdrive, that big old, hyperdrive ring. And personally, I find it very funny that no one seemed to care about that ugly alien pilot that died, at all. I think she's like the Greedo. She's like the Greedo of the group chat. I think they're called Rhodians or whatever. She was the first to go, got blown up, and all right, whatever. No one could care. It's oh no, what about Sabine and Ahsoka? It's no one care about the ugly abomination. And it's not a big deal, honestly, to me. But I personally just found it very amusing that no one cared. At all. That poor ugly abomination died at the end of last episode. It's not wasn't it horrible what happened to our pilots? Nah, let's just keep searching. We got a mission to do. It's all right, fair enough. Once we're on the planet, we get a nice interaction, I have to say, between Hu Yang and Hera. Outside of Baylan Skoll and Shin Hati, chat, Hu Yang, who's played by David Tennant, is easily the best character in this series. Despite being a droid, he had the most personality. He's had the most personality and character, and feels almost like an audience avatar of sorts. He's always talking sense to the cast and delivering each piece of dialogue with charm or wisdom, or and most of the time with sass. It helps especially since, so many of the characters in this show are, honestly, at this point, just so damn stoic. They continue just to be that way. It's very weird, because looking at Rebels and looking at Clone Wars, and these, all these characters have, very different personalities from each other. And it's been kind of bizarre to me to see them just they're all kind of the same level. They're all kind of at a 3 in terms of personalities. Like, and it's very much a creative choice on Dave Filoni's part, but I don't really understand why they're like none of them are acting the same as they are in any of their other respective shows that they originally came from. Well, people could argue it's like, well, they've changed. The events have changed them over time, and they have some situations that they've gone through, and it's made them bitter. And I'm like, and that's okay, but when you have all your characters kind of acting the same with each other, to me that definitely gets a little, a little dull. I can't be as emotionally invested. That's why I started gravitating towards other characters like Balin or Shin, who are the villains, but they're giving me something a little different, Chad. They're a little different than the Star Wars villains that we're used to seeing, honestly, in the franchise as of late. And also characters like, Hu Yang, who seems to be given just like a lot of personality. And David Tennant, I think, is bringing a lot to the role. And, just the cadence, the way in which he's speaking is just different from everyone else. Everyone has this kind of monotone, almost like weird, like they almost stop, like they always stop like mid-sentence, like they have this truncated way of speaking to each other, and it's very odd, but he doesn't feel that way, which is certainly nice. And of course, the episode continues on. They continue their search for Ahsoka, while Jason Sedula uses his Force abilities to somehow point them in the right direction. And I love how they do some exposition. Like, everyone's like, how does this kid know how to use the Force and everything? Because, people who watch Rebels understand that that's Hera and Kanan Jarrus' son that they had together. And that's why he has these natural, Force abilities, right? But people, watching for the first time, they have no idea anything about Rebels. Be like, wait, what's going on? And they kind of have an audience avatar character with this. I forget what his name is, Carson. I think that X-wing pilot who's showed up in Mandalorian. He showed up in Book of Boba Fett. He's shown up, here in Ahsoka. And he's like us. He's like, wait, what the hell just happened? And Hu Yang comes in. He's like, oh, listen, yeah, Hera stooped this Jedi named Kanan Jarrus, and they had a kid, and he has the Force. And Carson just goes, okay. He just shrugs his shoulder and says, sure. And he just goes back to his ship and starts his patrols. And so I like that. He's just like, all right, whatever. Sure, just tell me on a need-to-know basis. That's fine. That's fine. I thought that was kind of funny. Moving on from all that, which I feel like is kind of the boring B-plot of this episode. We get to the meat of this episode, which of course is between Ahsoka and Anakin Skywalker, who is once again played by Hayden Christensen. And listen, I'll be very blunt. Outside the brief moment between Ewan McGregor and Christensen in the last episode of Kenobi, which again, for whatever reason, the filmmaker said, let's not have them ever interact with each other or have any conversations whatsoever. But when they did, that's when the show was at its best, which is crazy to me. It's just like, this is the best the show has been. Why didn't you have them speak to each other beforehand? All that wasted time chasing little Leia and our little derpy legs and Riva doing whatever the hell she was doing, chat, for whatever reasons. But in any case, outside of that wonderful moment between Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen in the last episode of Kenobi, this is by far the best Christensen has ever been as Anakin. And listen, this needs to be said. Hayden Christensen got a lot of hate way back in the day for episode 2 and episode 3. Listen, I'll freely admit, I was part of that. I was saying, this guy's terrible. He can't act. It's like, why is he so stoic? Why is he either stoic or why is he whiny? And it really, this is because I just didn't realize that really the reason why he was the way he was is because he had a shit script. And he was given terrible direction by George Lucas. Hayden Christensen is actually a very good actor. I always point to this film, chat, Shattered Glass. Shattered Glass is such a good movie. It's a movie that anyone who has ever said, which I used to back in the day, oh, Hayden Christensen's a terrible actor. I pointed to that film and was like, tell me he's terrible after watching that movie. And everyone who has seen that film goes, oh, no, he's great. And so, again, it just goes back to the fact that, yeah, you can be the most talented actor in the world, chap, but if you are given a shit script and you are given shit direction, you're going to give a shit performance. And it's too bad, because I feel like, how those films are received, his performance was received, kind of negatively affected his career. But, since that time, people have certainly embraced him again, and certainly the character of Anakin Skywalker, although he was not involved in, you know, the Clone Wars TV series, which brought so much personality and characterization to Anakin, and also just, you know, expanded on his relationships. Now it made sense when, like, Obi-Wan Kenobi says he was an amazing star pilot and Jedi, but more importantly, he was a good friend, an amazing friend, right? And so when you watch the movies, like, that doesn't come across at all. Like, they hate each other throughout those films. But when you watch that show, then that's there. I feel like that has kind of retroactively made people like Hayden Christensen's Anakin Skywalker more. Again, it's not his fault. But, you know, I think that series and, you know, expanded universe materials, legend materials at this point, I suppose, like, that has certainly, you know, helped. But, you know, he does return here, and we get to see numerous interactions between Anakin and Ahsoka, you know, throughout their lifetimes. You know, more specifically during the Clone Wars, there's a number of I guess you could say flashbacks, visions, where we see, like, Anakin in his attire in the original Star Wars, the Clone Wars series, with a very young Ahsoka Tano during one of their first battles, and they're, you know, interacting with each other, and Anakin's trying to teach her these variety lessons. Like, I have one more thing that I need to teach you, right? And it was kind of cool to see, you know, the Clone Wars, except it's not all CGI mumbo jumbo and gobbledygook. Like, I hate the aesthetics of Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith, Chad. It's like there's just nothing on the screen. It's just green screen. It's just CGI characters and actors trying to act against that, and it's very difficult to do so. Here we actually get guys in suits, and they're on a set and everything. It's like, yeah, they're using the volume. I think the volume, they're using it way too heavily, but it was kind of cool to see, like, oh, I can actually feel like I can interact with these people. Like, they're physically there in the scene. So that was cool, and they were actually giving, you know, Hayden Christensen dialogue that wasn't awful, that wasn't terrible or cringy or whiny. And, you know, his interactions both with Rosario Dawson's Ahsoka and his interactions with the young actress who was playing the younger Ahsoka, I thought were very good. They were quite good, you know. And we see, you know, basically Anakin embracing all aspects of his personality, including Darth Vader. You know, it's like people are asking, is Darth Vader in this episode? Yeah. Yeah, we definitely see that. We definitely see that in more ways than one, in all shapes and sizes, chat. And it was cool how they incorporated, like, visually, how they made, like, callbacks to him as Vader, both in the suit and out of the suit, was really fun to see. And so I liked that. I liked how they did that. And really it was just used to, you know, teach Ahsoka this, you know, very specific lesson. And basically, you know, telling her, it's like, hey, stop being such a goddamn stick in the mud. All right, get off your ass, stop moping, stop being so stoic, all right, and go save your apprentice and go save the day, all right? Stop moping. I did like that Anakin said that, because this guy's the king of mope. And even he's like, you're boring me. So that was nice. The one thing that I think a lot of people are probably wondering is, how did all this even happen, right? Because last time we saw Ahsoka, she got knocked off a cliff by, you know, Ray Stevenson, by Balin's skull, and she fell there, right? Fell into the water below, and seemingly was lost. And then the episode ends with her, like, in this mystical, magical mumbo jumbo place. You know, people are asking, how is Ahsoka communicating with Anakin in this realm? You know, the world between worlds that has only been established before this in the series Star Wars Rebels, you know, as far as I know. Maybe it was in books, maybe it was in comics, but outside of that, like, I have not seen this in live action ever. And people are probably asking me right now, Chris, do they make an attempt to explain any of that? And the short answer is no. Not at all. I thought, like, how are they gonna explain? It's like, how Dave Filoni is Anakin gonna be like, this is where you are, and I did this, I manipulated the situation, I've been watching you for quite some time, or Ahsoka's like, you were previously in the world between worlds, and so that was like, what bullshit excuse are they gonna throw at me? And they don't. They choose not to, and I'm like, that's bold. That's a bold choice. That's a brave choice. I feel like it is probably better that they did not explain it, for a number of reasons. Number one, trying to explain that concept, the idea of the realm between worlds, which effectively is time travel. It is time travel introduced to Star Wars and Star Wars Rebels, where you can go back to the past. You can look in all these different during these huge events, right? You go to this realm. That's what they call the world between worlds, and you can see all these events that are transpiring in the past, in the present, and in the future, right? And characters in Star Wars Rebels were able to manipulate events during that time, specifically Ezra Bridger, right? And very controversial to do. It's like, listen, the time travel is not a unusual concept in science fiction. It's used quite often. Star Trek, every other episode seems to be time travel, you know? But for Star Wars, they've never dabbled in time travel before because it can get messy. Believe me, it can get very messy when you're doing time travel and going back to the past or going for a future or multiverse chat, which a lot of people are sick of hearing that word, right? And Rebels did it, and they didn't indulge in it quite often. It was just only there. And ever since then, they've kind of stayed away from it. But I was like, all right, you're gonna bring it in here. It's like, okay, how are you gonna do this? How are you gonna address it? And they just don't. And what it is, they don't address it. And so people who watch Rebels know what that is. But the thing that they do is that's kind of smart. In this, I'll give them this, even though I still feel like how it's used is trepidatious going forward in the future. And like, how often are you going to use this thing now? Right? Is it going to be like a get out of jail free card where it's like, oh yeah, someone gets knocked over a cliff. Oh, they're taken in the world between worlds. People that are watching this for the first time will just interpret it as she is near death and she crossed over via, possibly she's, again, she's between life and death at this point. And that's when, at her lowest moment, at her darkest moment, one of the people that she cared most about in her life is Anakin, and he's in the Force, and he communicates with her, and he wants to teach her something before she's eventually rescued. Like, that is the thing that people will walk away with after watching this sequence, this entire scene, this episode. It's like, oh, she was near death, and he came to her to help her, because then eventually she rescued. That's how the majority of people will interpret that scene if they knew nothing else about the world between worlds. But they don't make any attempt to explain that at all. Which, again, I mean, it's frustrating, but at the same time, it's probably for the best, because people would have been going like, huh? What? What are you talking about? So that was probably smart on their point. But again, even including it, it's already kind of weird. In any case, I still really liked the interactions between Anakin and Ahsoka. It's nice seeing Hayden Christensen again, and where he's actually given dialogue that is not awful, and he's given halfway decent direction, and he has some nice wholesome moments with Ahsoka. And also scary, he's very Vader-esque in a number of sequences too. I do like that. But the thing is, like, I'm at a point now of this show, like, we're past the halfway point, right? And I think overall it's been okay. It's been enjoyable enough. Nowhere near the same level of quality as something like Andor. Nowhere near the same level in terms of its storytelling, of its writing, of what it's commenting on. Just dialogue. It's no question. It's just not, it doesn't reach that in any capacity. No capacity, right? Even the action scenes. Even the action is better in Andor. Yeah, you don't get lightsabers in Andor, but that's not a bad thing, But thankfully it is not as terrible. It's not at the bottom of the barrel with Obi-Wan Kenobi or the Book of Boba Fett. Thankfully, Chad. It's just kind of coasting. It's kind of coasting. I hate to say like mediocrity, but a little bit. And I don't know. I just expected more, but it just has these certain creative choices that are bothering me. Again, like the how stoic so many of these characters are, the weird cadence at which everyone is talking. Is very bizarre to me. Like, I really don't get that. But then it does have these moments which I do think are good, like the stuff between Anakin and Ahsoka. Like, that's pretty cool. But the thing is, I come back to this every time. It's like, I'm just curious to see how Grand Admiral Thrawn will be portrayed, like, in this show and going forward in live-action Star Wars content. It's like they brought in Lars Mikkelsen, who voices the character in Star Wars Rebels, who I think did an excellent job. He did very good. He's going to be playing him here again. But I'm kind of worried that it's like, okay, if everyone else is talking this way, has this weird cadence and this weird stoicism, it's like, is he going to be that way too? Because that's not really how Grand Admiral Thrawn talks. He's not like, I mean, he's intelligent, he's articulate, he's filled with wisdom, but he's not like this kind of, personalityless automaton like so many others. And so that has me a little concerned because I love this character. I mean, for a lot of people, the Thrawn trilogy is kind of, viewed as that's what they should have done. That's the true trilogy, the true sequel trilogy to the original Star Wars films, right? And in hindsight, it's probably what they should have done. And I want to see this character represented in a good way because he is legitimately really, really good. He is awesome. He's a very different type of threat. He's not a Force user. He's not a Sith. He's not like a Hutt gangster. Like he's this amazing military strategist and tactician and politician, and he uses his intelligence to defeat his enemies. In order to defeat your enemy, you can't just study their battle tactics and their strategy. You have to learn about their history, their culture, their art, and that's really cool. And you like a villain like that. He's like, because he respects his enemies. He respects them. And he's not like evil. He just thinks like this is the only way to truly control the galaxy. And to rule in this way. Because the way that you're doing it is not working, which was explored in the original Thrawn trilogy. The New Republic was corrupt, which I guess they kind of explore here too, even though I don't think they're going into that enough. He's like, you guys are corrupt. You're messing up. I have this ridiculously huge armada because I've spent however many years in the unknown regions. With my massive fleet that keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, I've corralled the warlords, the Imperial warlords, and I've established myself not as a Grand Admiral, but I am the new Emperor. Like, Palpatine is dead. Vader is dead. I rule the Empire now, and I love that about him. It's like, yeah, that guy's proactive. And so that's what I want to see, and I don't know if I'm going to see that. And that has me very concerned. But at this point, maybe that's what I should expect. Because, and that's the other thing too. I'm just with this show. I feel like I'm missing the emotion and the quality of a Star Wars story like Andor. And I know I keep going back to that, but I feel like it really is missing that. Which again, I still say this. The Andor is by far the best piece of live action Star Wars content in decades. It's the best probably since, as much as I love something like Return of the Jedi, I do. And a number of other, Star Wars projects. But in terms of live action, it's the best since The Empire Strikes Back. I don't think there's any question of that. And so that's what I want now. It's like people are saying like, I don't want everything to be like Andor. And I'm like, no, I agree. I don't want everything to be like Andor. But now I'm at a point where it's like, I want everything to be like Andor. I want everything to have the same level of storytelling and craftsmanship and acting and writing and direction as Andor. I need that right now for Star Wars, okay? I don't want to settle for, well, certainly not awful stuff, which I don't think Ahsoka's awful again. But I feel like Ahsoka's kind of like middle of the road. It's fine. It's entertaining enough. But it's not something that is literally that I'm going to go back and rewatch. I have like no motivation to go watch like episode 1 again after watching like this most recent episode. Whereas like of Andor, it's like, God damn, there's just so much detail and so much creativity and so much craftsmanship in those episodes that I have such a wonderful appreciation for it. And I don't feel the same way for Ahsoka. Again, it's not bad. It's not, but it is not of the quality that I want Star Wars to be right now. I think this is a fine episode. Really like what they do with Hayden Christensen as Anakin. They actually give him some good material, which is a far cry from what he, originally had to work with all those years ago, which is nearly 20 years ago now, which is crazy to think about. But he's better here, and they do right by him. Curious to see how this show's going to wrap up, Chad. We have 3 more episodes left, 6, 7, 8. That's right. And, I also am curious to the state of Star Wars because this is apparently supposed to lead into a movie directed by Dave Filoni, which now I'm like, I don't know if I want him to direct that movie. I'm a little concerned because this is going to be like how he's going to present all of his characters. And I'm not sure about that. If he is indeed doing an Heir to the Empire adaptation, which I would love an adaptation of the original trilogy. Let's fucking go. Let's do it. But I don't know if under him. I don't know if he's the right guy for it because I don't think he's found his voice as a live action filmmaker yet. Certainly when it comes to the animation, no question about it. He's done some amazing work, some great work, delivered some great storytelling in Star Wars in animated form. But in live action, I just don't feel like he has. And I'm as someone who loves Grand Admiral Thrawn and loves that character and loves those books, I'm a little concerned with how he's going to adapt them. But that's how I feel about Ahsoka so far and this particular episode. But that's just my opinion. I think a lot of people are really enjoying this series and they really loved this episode and the last one. But what about you guys? How do you feel about Ahsoka episode 5? Let me know.
I hope everyone enjoyed the video, and I want to take the time to tell you about my Patreon, Class in the Glass, which offers hundreds of film commentaries and video reactions to numerous movies, TV shows, and cartoons. If you're a fan of shows like Batman the Animated Series and Avatar The Last Airbender, or films like Aliens and Raiders of the Lost Ark, my Patreon is the platform for you. Currently, I'm doing a subathon to reach 75 subs on the platform. If we hit 75 subs, we'll be able to start voting on the next edited YouTube reaction, which will include actual clips and scenes from the movies and shows I comment over. Choose from such films as Fire and Ice, Masters of the Universe, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers the movie, Mortal Kombat Annihilation, or Spawn. Subscribing at any tier level is appreciated, and feel free to give feedback at any time. Thank you again for watching the video, and see you next time.